Every day on this channel, I go through everything Elon said on X in the last 24 hours. And here's how many times Elon posted about each subject today. And you can see he posted about UK politics 46 times. And here's what fueled those 46 posts. An asylum seeker sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl in Epping. So upset locals organized massive protests to shut down the hotel that was housing the asylum seekers. The local council decided to close the asylum seeker hotel. Then the government used taxpayers' money to take the council to court. Government lawyers said the rights of asylum seekers was more important than locals, and the court ruled in favor of the government. So now the hotel will remain open and continue to house asylum seekers. So they used taxpayers' money to argue for the right to use more taxpayers' money to house people in the country in free hotels. Meanwhile, locals are struggling to get by with massive inflation costs. So Elon says, as goes Epping, so goes all of England. Sharon says you cannot have a British government saying illegal foreign immigrants are the first legal priority over tax-paying British people. This is an insane position to hold and expect the support of your people. As a government, you are now officially working against the electorate. Elon quotes that and says the government is committing treason against the people. And lawyers for the Epping Hotel were arguing the perceived risk of housing illegal immigrants is being fueled by disinformation on social media. Matt says the sexual assault of a 14-year-old girl by an Ethiopian asylum seeker in Epping who said he wanted to make Jamaican babies is not disinformation. And he gives countless other examples and stories. And he says, in fact, the only people who have been spreading disinformation is the state itself, which not only imported thousands of people from Afghanistan while gagging the UK press, hiding it from British citizens and charging them billions for the privilege, but not consistently gaslighting us by reframing real-world events as disinformation. People are so sick and tired of this, and Elon reposted this. This judge has decided that your daughters may get raped, but that's a sacrifice he's willing to make to preserve the status quo. And Elon said unconscionable. The British government is now saying that the rights of asylum seekers is more important than the local population. Elon again says, as goes Epping, so goes all of England. Here was Lord Justice Bean commenting on the matter. The Epping residents' fear of crime was properly taken into account. We agree it is relevant, but it is clearly outweighed by the undesirability of incentivizing protests, of preserving the status quo, and the range of public interest factors. Elon says if this terrible judge was sentenced to live in the Epping Hotel with violent migrants, he would change his mind very quickly. And lawyers acting on behalf of Yvette Cooper have said the rights of illegal migrants are more important than the people of Epping. Labour just said the quiet bit out loud. This utterly unacceptable statement should immediately trigger a general election, and Elon says yes. Elon says this is state-enforced child sacrifice. And the Restore Britain movement posted, in the words of Elon Musk, a government against its people. And Elon reposted this. And Robert Jenrick is a UK politician. He says this is an extremely disappointing decision. Yvette Cooper used taxpayer money, your money, to keep open a hotel housing illegal migrants. The government's lawyers argued accommodating illegal migrants was in the national interest. In court, they said the right of illegal migrants to free hotels is more important than the rights of the British people. Well, they are not. The British government should always put the interests of the British people first. Starmer's government has shown itself to be on the side of illegal migrants who have broken into our country. But this is not a free pass for asylum hotels. Councils can and should still act to close hotels. If they don't, residents will rightly ask on whose side are they. There is no acceptable accommodation for illegal migrants. The government should be prioritizing Brits in need and deporting every illegal migrant as the last government should have done, and I've argued for years. And Elon reposted this. Rupert Lowe says to abolish the Home Office and start again. A new department staffed with British patriots who believe in secure borders and mass deportations. Steve says Epping is everywhere, and Elon says all Britain is Epping. The leader of Restore Britain again says a government against its own people. And this has sparked a movement where people are putting up English flags all over the place. Brighton seafront has been covered in hundreds of England and UK flags. Elon quoted the saying, "Save Britain." Elon said, "A nation with a government against its people shall perish from the earth." And Alison Pearson says there are some explosive moments in history where a bright illuminating light is cast over the land and we see things for what they truly are. The Home Office defeating the people of Epping and denying them the right to protect their kids against illegal aliens is that moment. Even people in Wales are raising the colors. The whole country is united because of these flags. And Elon says, people of the great nations of Britain and Ireland, rally now to save your beautiful countries. It's now or never. Fight, fight, fight. Soon it will be too late. And here's Britannia Hotel in Seacroft, Leeds tonight. Lots of flags risen. Elon says, beautiful. Public faith in the judiciary is being rapidly eroded. Trust must be restored and activist judges must be sacked. And Elon says, yes. And as all these flags are raised, J.D. Vance endorses the viral Raise the Colors operation and calls for Brits to push back against those offended by the flag. The fight back is ramping up. Rupert Lowe says, sense from the Americans. J.D. Vance telling Brits to push back against the crazies offended by our flag. He seems to like it. Consider it done. And Elon reposted this. And in response to Elon telling the people of the great nations to rally, Captain Ellie quoted it saying, sorry, unpopular opinion. Elon, since you're talking about this and I'm always vocal in my support, I'll say a few words. I usually don't express such opinions out loud. As a Jew from Israel, let me tell you honestly that I can't walk around Europe without risking my life. I've spent years in Europe and I hold a European passport. I work there and part of my identity is as a French Italian. This is not the Europe we want. It's perhaps more like the Europe of World War II, where it was dangerous to be something different. Anyway, it's time to raise our heads and say honestly that enough is enough. To those who don't connect with these words, I'm not advocating for anything extreme. I'm a peace seeker, and I am who I am, not where I come from. And Elon reposted that. Bo Dade says they're insisting that our women and girls be in danger. It's as straightforward as that. And Elon says, yes. Tommy Robinson says, these are the people who the Labour government voted against today in favor of unvetted migrant men. These are the people they call far right. The government has declared war on the people. On September 13th, we unite as one against them. And if your own nation's flag becomes a symbol of rebellion, you are living under a hostile government. And Elon agrees. And imagine trying to explain this to any one of our ancestors. Yeah, so we have a camp in every city and town where we accommodate young males from a tribe that usually lives like 6,000 kilometers away from here, and they have no connection to us. We pay for everything. Wow, they must really love you. Oh no, they really hate us, and they constantly rob, rape, and murder our elders and women. Wow, the retaliation for these heinous crimes must have been immense. Have you made songs about the revenge so that it will never be forgotten? Revenge? What do you mean? Last week, a young girl was killed by one of them, and we sent 2 police officers into the camp, but then they were also sexually assaulted themselves. Is that what you mean? What? Did you at least make an example out of the perpetrators who sexually assaulted your guards and forever tarnished our honor? No. But we are imprisoning our own people when they talk about this. Does that count? And Elon reposted that one. So what's it like living in the UK? I can't complain. Oh, that's good. No, I mean I can't complain. I might go to jail. Elon reposted that too. A nation with a government against its people shall perish from the earth. Connie Shaw says, a friend just messaged me saying he sat in a barber shop in Barnsley and everyone's talking about the Epping Hotel. It's a hotel just outside London and everyone's discussing it 200 miles north. And Elon reposted that. Elle says, we must be the change. And Elon says, either that or the British Isles dies. The British government has declared war against the British people. And Elon says, yes. And he reposted this image of himself holding a sword next to the English flag. And another image of himself in armor with English flags in the background. And then he posted the swords emojis. And here is that story that was referenced earlier. Last week, a 17-year-old Dutch girl named Lisa was murdered by an asylum seeker who was already wanted for other sexual assaults. Days later, when police wanted to make an arrest at an asylum center in connection to the murder, they themselves were attacked and sexually assaulted. I know this sounds absolutely crazy, but it's true. This cannot go on any longer. And Elon quoted that with the swords emoji. A government against its people. Elon Musk has summed up Starmer's government in one phrase. Starmer is not for the British. And Rupert Lowe says, from an Englishman, what a flag. I am jealous of how the Welsh celebrate Wales. England should do the same. We're delighted to have so many Welsh patriots in Restore Britain. What a proud nation. And Elon responds to this saying the dragon is cool. And lefty York MP Rachel Maskell has demanded the local Labour Council start taking down England flags as they threaten the breakdown of society. Elon responds saying shame on her. Allison says, in the hierarchy of rights, the Court of Appeal ruled the British people come below men who broke into our country. Do not despair, my friends. Revenge, when it comes, will be all the sweeter. The Supreme Court may yet find for common sense. Elon says, insane. And Bernie says the UK has never been brought so low, where its own people are demonized for flying their own flag, where they have to fight their elected government to put them first and then lose. And if they complain too loudly or try and arrange protests about it, they can be arrested preemptively for what they might say or do. This is not democracy. It is not any place I thought I would live, and it is certainly nothing at all to be proud of. I am ashamed. And Elon reposted it. And here was the clip of J.D. Vance urging people to push back against the crazies who object to flying the flag in the UK. And if you guys remember the story about the Scottish girl who pulled out a knife and axe to protect her 12-year-old sister from a pervert, it's being reported that a third girl had been kicked to the ground and beaten, needing hospital treatment. The attackers haven't been arrested yet, the perverts, but the girl with the axe was arrested. And Elon responds with 2 exclamation marks. And Restore Britain says, Restore Scotland. Northwestern European selflessness created high-trust societies, large-scale collaboration, and worldwide domination. It is somewhat ironic that this biocultural trait is now responsible for lowering social trust, increasing ethnic conflict, and decreasing global competitiveness. And Elon says, exactly. And somebody's actually doing it in Europe. Greece is now arresting all asylum seekers arriving illegally in the country and sending them straight to detention. The Greece government is warning that there is an invasion into Europe. Elon says it is an invasion. In Sweden, a man in his 70s has been convicted of hate crime and sentenced to fines and suspended sentence. What did he do? He disliked a drag queen theater performance and called it disgusting. Free speech is gone, and Elon says, wow. And in Italy, an African migrant awaiting deportation has been arrested for eating the pets of locals. 2 dogs were stolen and eaten. One of them tortured with boiling oil. Detain and deport. It's that simple. This is one of the dogs named Merlin, and here's the full story from RMX News. Elon says, madness. In Germany, the parties committed to speaking only positively about migration. Correction, all parties except the AfD. And Elon reposted that. And the photo below is pretty gory, so I'm not going to show it, but it's the face of an American tourist who stepped in to prevent the rape of 2 German girls at the hands of a Syrian asylum seeker in Dresden, Germany. So Elon quoted it saying that is abhorrent. And Alice Weidel is co-chairwoman of the AfD, and she says, we won't make it. Through the policy of open borders, we have imported a brutalization of horrific proportions. Innocent people are murdered, stabbed, and raped daily. Everyone who supports this neglected policy of lawlessness is guilty. And Elon quotes that with the German flag. And America spends trillions on NATO to protect democracies, including Germany. But it has just prevented an opposition candidate from running for mayor for frivolous reasons, including his praise for Lord of the Rings. This is a clear violation of NATO's charter. Security agency uses Lord of the Rings commentary to block mayoral candidate in Germany. And Elon quoted that saying, crazy. And back in America, we learned about the school shooting in Minneapolis yesterday. And the shooter confessed he was tired of being trans. I wish I never brainwashed myself. Libs of TikTok says the Democratic Party grooms kids into being transgender and turns them into radical LGBTQ terrorists. And Elon reposted that. And Vittorio says progressivism and wokeism is an evolutionarily maladaptive ideology and will naturally go extinct since most of the ideas it champions select against humanity, family, fertility, and continuity. That's why they are so obsessed with taking control of media, schools, and kids. The only way for their ideas to reproduce is indoctrination. Elon quotes that and says, in order to survive, an ideology that fails to reproduce itself must necessarily infect the minds of the children of those who do reproduce. That's why they push so hard to control education. It is a vampire cult. Ben Shapiro says the shooter was a transgender regret case. The day before this shooting, we exposed the American Medical Association's negligence on regret data. The morning of, we exposed the American Medical Association's trans expert admitting there's no true psychiatric assessment done before transing a kid. And Elon says, yes. And CNN's Andrew McCabe said the transgender Minneapolis shooter was a daughter, not a son. I'm sure the mother is grieving for her daughter. Eric says the dude was a dude. CNN is unreal. Elon says something needs to be done about CNN. Scott Jennings says, call me crazy, but if you tell me men can get pregnant, you have zero credibility with me on anything to do with health. Why would I listen to a word you say if you fail basic biology? Once again, I find myself being screamed at for taking the top side of a 97-3 issue. And Elon reposted that. Wall Street Map says when the trans ideology started getting shoved in our faces by Obama and Biden, I was more tolerant. My attitude was, if a man wants to dress like a woman, it's fine. I can ignore him. But now that's over. Their delusions are affecting our lives and our children. We must actively confront and reject their delusional ideology. It is too dangerous to allow this to go on, and Elon agrees. Insurrection Barbie says, I seriously think we need to bring back mental asylums. And Elon agrees with this as well. And Libs of TikTok suggest that having guns is not the problem in the US. And they provide a list of trans people who have done mass shootings. They say, are you starting to see a pattern here? It's an epidemic. Gunther responds, do we have a transgender violence epidemic? And Elon says, yes. And Elon says this may trigger some people. DiCaprio says, I was born a man, but I identify as a woman. Who are you to judge? And Killian says, I identify as a judge. And God Saad says, if Muhammad Ahmed commits a terror attack in the West, please do not release his name as this might engender Islamophobia. If non-binary they commits a mass shooting, please do not highlight their trans status as this might engender transphobia. If a white Christian straight man robs a bank, please keep reminding people of his identity and refer to him as a white supremacist. Any questions? Elon quotes that and says, double standard. Gunther says the woke mind virus is a cancer, and Elon agrees. Callie says we are facing a population collapse, and the Center for Disease Control lists smaller family size as one of the most important scientific achievements in modern history. They also list forcing children to drink fluoride. Elon responds, a sustained birth rate below replacement means extinction. And Matt Van Swoel says, if I am being perfectly honest, I think I am beginning to lose the will to be tolerant. And Elon says, if tolerance means the end of Western civilization, then we cannot be tolerant. The Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey raises to defend the trans community after a trans-identifying man killed children in a Catholic school. Matt Walsh says, this guy is an utterly pathetic, depraved piece of shit. And Elon says, total scumbag. And Tom says CNN also failed to report the shooter was trans. And Elon said CNN is deeply affected with the woke mind virus. And Andy says the Socialist Rifle Association is one of the far-left militia groups that train transgender and Antifa-linked radicals to kill. The Minnesota chapter uses the same symbols that the Minneapolis trans mass shooter put in his manifesto journal detailing death before detransition. And Elon replied to that with 2 exclamation marks. Matt Van Swoel says, I've been waiting to write this for a long time. I think now is the time. Empathy is a virtue, and it is being weaponized against those of us who truly and honestly care. It's insidious by design. Here's how it works on so many, including me, for so long. The pattern is always the same. Present an emotional story, frame any opposition as cruel and harmful, rebrand neutrality as complicity, and make the policy solution an empathy test. A trans person just shot up a school. Notice how fast the narrative shifted. Not about the victims, not about parents who will never see their kids again, but about protecting the trans community from backlash. It's empathy pointed in the wrong direction. It's not just the trans issue. Look at immigration. They say it's just families seeking a better life. Okay, but then you learn about the fentanyl, gangs, human trafficking. That's not good. But if you bring that up, suddenly you are heartless and racist. Do you see the game? You see a homeless person on the street with your kids. They say, these are vulnerable people with nowhere else to go. So, cities allow open drug use, tents, and crime. If you disagree, you are accused of lacking compassion while the entire community suffers because of it. It becomes even more apparent when talking about crime. They just made a mistake. Suddenly you discover there is vastly more empathy for criminals than empathy for victims. That doesn't sound right. You're ignoring systemic oppression. What about all the foreign refugees? They're fleeing war zones, have a heart. And of course, many truly are. Nobody denies that. But when you rightly raise concerns around vetting, crime, or cultural integration, empathy is used as a shield to shut you down. And now, after a mass shooting, instead of focusing empathy on the kids who were killed, we're being told the real victims are the group the shooter belonged to. That's weaponized empathy at its ugliest possible form. So I'll end with this. Real empathy does not erase reality. It cares about all people impacted by a policy or tragedy. So when empathy becomes selective, politicized, and manipulative, it's no longer compassion, it is no longer empathy, it is control. And Elon reposted that thread. And Sean McGuire says the man who is setting the vaccine schedule for our children is a childless Satan worshiper. Here are some photos of him here. And here is his resignation letter, where he is formally resigning from his position as director of the National Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. So yes, this was actually him. Elon says, whoa. Buck Sexton says Democrats still have no idea just how much their little trial run of full communism during COVID turned millions of gun owners from, sure, I support 2A, to, you will have to pry my 5 assault rifles from my cold, dead hands. And Elon says 100. Tim Burchett says if you don't think the deep state exists, then how do all the talking heads magically say the same thing? And Elon says exactly. And AG says Obama has posted 5 times in the past 24 hours. The Democrats are in full panic mode, and Elon responds with a fireball. Brandon Levy, who killed a cop in St. Louis, let out of jail on a $5,000 bond, and Elon responds with 2 exclamation marks. Wall Street Math says if I have a pit bull and it gets off its leash and attacks someone, I'm held responsible. When politicians bring in millions of third world invaders and judges release them on the streets even after they commit crimes, why aren't the politicians and judges held responsible? Elon says judges should carry responsibility for their verdicts. That would swiftly resolve injustice. Kristi Noem says the Federal Emergency Management Agency's career IT leadership failed on every level. Their incompetence put the American people at risk. Kristi's referring to a data breach exposing 2.3 million disaster victims' personal information. When Department of Homeland Security stepped in to fix the problem, entrenched bureaucrats worked to prevent us from solving the problem and downplayed just how bad this breach was. These deep state individuals were more interested in covering up their failures than in protecting the homeland and American citizens' personal data. So I terminated them immediately. The American people deserve results from their government, and Elon agreed with the American flag. And Andrew says that Politico just ran a fictional smear job on Steve Witkoff, and Tim vouches for Steve Witkoff, saying he's helped Trump deliver an average of 1 peace agreement per month in conflicts around the world. He brings an outsider perspective to peace negotiations and is delivering results. So no surprise that hack journalists and ineffective deep state bureaucrats are smearing him in an attempt to remain relevant. Elon says Witkoff is great. And today, President Trump issued a momentous new executive order making federal architecture great again. The directive states that there must be a preference for classical and traditional architecture when the government is choosing designs for federal buildings. The order is strongest regarding Washington, D.C., requiring that new federal buildings there be classical. And Elon reposted this. And Elon responded to another post where somebody is saying how Trump is going after George Soros. Elon seems happy about it. And we've seen this chart on the channel before. 80% of all crimes are committed by people with over 3 prior arrests. Most people are not criminals. A tiny minority are antisocial psychopaths who commit most crimes. This is some of the lowest hanging policy fruit there is. What's crazy about this chart, it says prior arrests of persons admitted to state prison in 34 states. There's as many people admitted to prison in these 34 states who have been arrested over 31 times as there are of people who have just been arrested 1 time. That's crazy. And Elon reposted this. And huge news, NASA acting administrator Sean Duffy says in 2027, we will return American astronauts to the moon. We won yesterday's space race. We'll win today's space race against China, and we'll always win tomorrow's space race. SpaceX's Starship test flight success moves us 1 step closer towards achieving that goal. So Elon quoted that with many, many, many American flags. And Eric Berger says this is the most badass spaceflight photo I've ever seen in a long, long time. And this high-resolution photo from John Krause, you can see that the heat shield is still intact, so why the orange color? Elon says the orange color is rust from rapid oxidation of metallic test tiles. He says it's worth noting that the heat shield tiles almost entirely stayed attached, so the latest upgrades are looking good. The red color is from some metallic test tiles that oxidized, and the white is from insulation of areas where we deliberately remove tiles. You can see the white color at the top there. And one more time, just to get it in your noggin, the orange is oxidized metal. Did they just stick a chunk of steel on there and let it get plasma blasted onto the rest of the heat shield? Elon says, yep. Metal oxidizes fast at Mach 25. So that turned into that. And there's some more photos of Starship. There's even a little rainbow right there. And the Starship landing video in the Indian Ocean was taken from a camera bolted to a Starlink terminal sitting in a kiddie pool. Elon says this looks fake, but it's real. And here is a really cool camera shot of the liftoff of the Super Heavy booster, the most powerful launch vehicle in history on Starship's 10th flight test. Elon puts up the flames. They had a drone on a buoy in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and they landed an orbital rocket next to it while filming. Elon said landing was accurate to within 3 meters of the target position. Edward says it's hilarious how SpaceX and Starlink wound up as a de facto global monopoly by literally being the only ones bold enough to try. Elon said others are still actually trying, by the way. And this is the 30th flight for the Falcon 9 booster. Elon said, yeah, that's 30 flights of the same rocket. And Falcon 9 completes the first 30th launch and landing of an orbital class rocket. And Elon says, how time flies. And he's referencing a chart from the ULA launch team, where in 2015, they predicted that their smart reuse system was actually cheaper than SpaceX's booster flyback system. It turns out that they were wrong. Robert says, never forget the CEO's contempt for SpaceX and Elon, saying reusability is a dream. Anything they can do, we can do. They're not supermen. And Elon has a laugh at that one. And Eric Jorgensen says, friendly reminder that Elon called his shots. 19 years ago, he posted the Tesla Master Plan. 9 years ago, he posted Master Plan Part 2. Elon quoted this and said, Tesla Master Plan Part 2 will be complete next year. This was Master Plan Part 2. Create stunning solar roofs, expand the electric vehicle product line to address all major segments, develop a self-driving capability that is 10 times safer than manual via massive fleet learning, and enable your car to make money for you when you aren't using it. So he says all of that will be complete next year. Master Plan 3 was too complex for almost anyone to understand, but described how all of Earth could move to sustainable energy. Master Plan 4 will be concise. And here's the mainstream media's review of Tesla's FSD after using it on public roads in Australia. They said, to have this car drive me around Brisbane for an hour, we're talking in the city, motorway, spaghetti bowl of on-ramps. It handled it so well. It was mind-blowing. And Elon reposted that. And it's not every day that you bring a world record to the USA, but the Denver Tesla Club knocked it out of the park last night with the world's highest Tesla light show at 14,000 feet. And James Stevenson is continually amazed by how enraptured the media and Tesla Q are with Waymo's safety record. They've reported hundreds of collisions to NHTSA this year. That's like 15 per week. Elon says true. And Alex Stapp says this should be a wake-up call for US policymakers. Chinese solar is now expanding so fast that by the early 2030s, the country will generate more power from the sun than the amount of electricity the US will consume altogether. And Elon says, yeah. And this XAI employee says it's quite shocking to experience the rate of progress in video generation. About 2 to 3 years ago, people were trying to convert image generation models to generate very low FPS videos. Now we have extremely small teams being able to create high quality video and audio models in a couple of months. At this pace, in a couple of years, it'll likely be close to impossible to distinguish between reality and AI generated worlds. And Elon agrees. And Elon reposted one of his employees trying to get some information about what makes these CLI tools impressive and what works for you. What kind of problems are you solving with these Claude coding tools? And Musk poaches 14 Meta AI engineers. Meta offers millions, Musk offers purpose. XFreeze says Zuckerberg pours billions to poach some of the best ones in the world. Then Elon offers them a real purpose and gets them all on board. Everybody knows that you can only trust Elon, and only he does the unthinkable, and he's the best leader. Only XAI has a real shot at AGI with Elon steering it. Elon built the most powerful AI with the smallest team in the world, and now they are about to witness something even bigger. How could they not want to be a part of it? And Elon reposted this. And here was Elon Musk's Twitter profile in 2012. He's got Solar City and PayPal in his bio. Wow, you could follow Elon Musk by texting a number in the United States. Model S signature series sold out as of today. Elon says ancient times. And Elon says Grok code is rising fast. On this test, lower is better, and Grok 4 code is now on par with Claude 4 Sonnet. That chart was produced by Klein, and they said great work by the XAI team. Elon said Grok code is making progress. And Grok code is now available in any coder. It runs completely in the browser. Elon said, cool. And Elon says, nice work by the Grok code team. Join XAI to take it to the next level. It's a great vibe in the office. Neil says we need a Grok CLI, and Elon says it's coming soon. The XAI account said Grok Code Fast 1 is versatile across the full stack and is particularly strong at TypeScript, Python, Java, Rust, C++, and Go. Using Grok Code 1 Fast, Danny built the following game in a day, and Elon reposted this. This XAI employee says, kudos to our crew. We've got a truly marvelous group of people, which this margin is too narrow to tag them all. And a fun side note, I was happy to witness 2 launches in a week. And someone said perks at XAI, and Elon reposted this. And Grok automatically chooses the right mode for your requests. It evaluates whether it should think hard or just give you a quick response. And the Grok Android app crossed 1.1 million reviews on the Play Store with an incredible average of 4.8 stars. And Michael Dell and the Dell tech team had another successful quarter. Elon says, congrats. And in this study, patients with low LDL cholesterol had a much higher rate of diabetes than those with higher LDL cholesterol. Peter says 92 million Americans take statins they probably don't need. And Elon says that's my opinion too. So that's everything that Elon said today. It's very interesting to see what's going on in Britain. Elon is still fighting the woke mind virus back in the US. We figured out why Starship was orange. And Elon said Tesla Master Plan Part 2 will be completed next year. And he even brought up the idea of a Master Plan Part 4, which was interesting. And I know these videos are starting to get posted a little bit later as I'm back at my job. I did a little recording in my classroom today. I'll post that for members as soon as I can. But if you guys want early access to these videos, you can do so by joining my channel as a member. It's a great way to support the channel, and I will see you guys tomorrow.